You want to keep it open?
I'll keep it open.
Let's have you sign before you go, okay?
Okay. All right. Thanks.
As you guys can see, Rob got a pina colada in Las Vegas. We're in Las Vegas right now, guys, the sports guys. And Rob is poolside. I'm up in the hotel room. Cannot wait to join him after our podcast. But Robbie, how you doing?
Doing great. Having a blast and really excited about draft day.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I cannot wait. So today, guys, we want to do a follow-up to the one we did last week where we talked about the top QBs that are in this draft. And that historically potentially might be the deepest quarterback draft in history. And I believe that is true. I think as many as 14 quarterbacks will be drafted. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about the wide receivers and the tight ends. We call them the pass catchers. And we believe this actually is the deepest draft for receivers and tight ends as well. And so we really wanted to bring that to you today, even though we're on vacation in Vegas right now. So pretty cool stuff. We're going to be also doing a quick episode after this one where we're going to string together all the photos and videos from this Vegas trip. So look for that one as well. So anyway, Robbie, you ready to go?
Ready.
Let's take a look at what we got here. All right. So we call this the NFL Draft Top Pass Catchers Preview, episode 12. Pretty cool that our channel has reached 12 episodes and we're cranking along. Thanks to all of you guys who have subscribed and are watching all of our episodes. We really appreciate it. So let's talk about the number one prospect in this year's draft as a pass catcher, and that is Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. Of course, his father is legendary receiver Marvin Harrison, who used to play with the Colts and was actually Peyton Manning's favorite target. This guy seems to be born for the position, has been the best prospect in college football really for the past 2 seasons. And really, he's been on the radar for most people really since his freshman year. Philadelphia native, very high-profile recruit when he signed at Ohio State. And when he signed at Ohio State, ironically, he signed when there was 3 first-round picks at that time in Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Smith and Jigba. So you can imagine he was not intimidated at all coming into a program that had these 3 studs already. Turned in just 11 grabs in his freshman year, but emerged as one of the premier players in college football as a true sophomore, as a lot of those other guys graduated and went to the NFL. He hauled in 77 passes his sophomore year for 1,263 and 14 touchdowns. And he continued to get new quarterbacks every year, which really shows how durable this guy is. Sitting at 6'3", 209 pounds, has a 40 time of 4.39, which is pretty blazing fast. Really runs like a gazelle when you watch his tape. And he was honored this past season with the Blitnikoff Award as the nation's top receiver. So, Rob, what are your thoughts about Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I think you can't miss. He's a fantastic prospect. 6'4", 205. He has all the tools. I think he needs to bulk up just a tiny bit in muscle. And he could be the next Justin Jefferson or something like that. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal player, totally ready for the NFL, difference maker.
And just imagine if you can get this guy on his rookie deal. I mean, he's literally going to be making less money in the pros than he made in college in the NIL. So,
yeah. Put it this way. If you think about Caleb Williams as the number 1 pick in the draft, I'm more confident that Marvin Harrison is going to be a better pro. I think Caleb Williams is more of a gamble than Marvin Harrison, not a gamble.
No doubt about it. And I would just say, wanted to let you guys know who are watching the program, we are going to put down in the comments after we post this video today some of the eye-popping highlights of all of these top receivers. So definitely take a look at that secondary video that we're going to put out there that shows all these prospects, NFL, combine, and otherwise eye-popping video highlights. So you can really see how amazing some of these receivers are. Anything else about Marvin Harrison Jr.? I agree about the can't-miss prospect. Likely to go at number 4 to the Arizona Cardinals, unless the Arizona Cardinals trade down. Potentially could.
I've seen a draft where he goes number 2. So anywhere between 2 and 5, I think, is a good range for him, depending on trades.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. I do know, though, that there are some teams that like Odunze a little bit better than Harrison, although I think all of these guys are can't misses. So we'll just have to see. There's a little bit of fluctuality at the top, but I think of all of the wide receiver prospects, if you talk about can't miss, it's this guy. No doubt about it. All right, let's look at our number 2 ranked wide receiver, Mr. Malik Neighbors. The rub on him is that he's only 6 feet, 200 pounds, so he's a little bit shorter than the other guys. Has
Yep.
blazing speed. He's at 4.40. He has incredible hands. And just if you think about this, after 3 years at LSU, he leads as the school's all-time leader in receptions with 189, which if you think about LSU being wide receiver U, it's pretty incredible that this guy broke all the records of all the other wide receivers. Receiving yards, he had over 3,000 yards receiving in his 3 years at LSU. So he went past Justin Jefferson. He went past Jamar Chase, all these guys who are incredible in the NFL, and he's broken all their records. Led the mighty SEC in receptions the past 2 seasons. Really, second only in the nation to his teammate Brian Thomas Jr., who we're going to talk about a little bit later in terms of touchdowns. So he had 14 touchdowns total. His success in Baton Rouge was no surprise. He was a highly ranked 4-star coming out of Lafayette, Louisiana, and was actually ruled ineligible for his senior season following a late transfer from Southside to Youngsville High School. So didn't even have a senior year in high school to count on, and yet comes to LSU and makes a humongous impact. Any thoughts on Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, so he's only 6 feet, which doesn't really scare me anymore because there's a lot of factors you have to look at, but he's a playmaker. He's 201 pounds, so he's sturdy. And the last thing you want to do when you're a player is not be available. So the stronger you are, the more likely it is that you're not going to hurt yourself. There's no way to predict blowing your knee out, but he's second in the country in yardage, 1,569 yards, and he had 14 touchdowns. So he's off the chart in every metric you can have, and he comes from LSU, which is receiver university. If I'm an NFL GM, I'm drafting a receiver from LSU every year.
Yeah, pretty much. And the fact that he broke all the records for Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, it's really, really astounding, this guy.
Every metric is off the chart.
I think his height is a slight concern, but I don't think very much, like you said. He has tremendous.
I might work him inside a little bit more than somebody who's 6'4", but, playmaker can make plays in any capacity, anywhere, anytime. So it just comes down to creativity of offensive coordinator and quality of quarterbacking.
His ratings are 92.8. I think he's another can't miss prospect. I really think these top guys are all can't miss. I think he's going to make a huge impact whoever drafts him. He'll be a number 1 receiver very quickly. Anything else on Neighbors?
The only thing I don't know is did he have a good 40 time? I don't know about his 40 time.
He's 4.40. He's a little bit slower than.
That's good though. That's good. It's not great, but it's good.
Yeah. His big strengths are incredible hands, maybe the best hands of these top 3, and also his route running. He runs incredible routes, and he just kind of runs routes so good that he gets himself open.
I heard a scout talk. What's that?
In the end, I mean, if you think about it, in the pros, it's all about separation, and the teams that don't have receivers that can't get separation, they can't get any passing going.
Yeah. I heard a scout talking about how one of the most important things is the body of work. Not so much how they did at a combine when there's a lot of pressure and they're out of their element. When you prepare and you go out on game day and you crush it, that's a good indicator of how you're going to do in the NFL. So even though eye-popping 40 times are nice, they definitely tell you about speed, but sometimes people are sneaky quick and they don't run a good 40 time. So it doesn't tell you everything, but he's got the body of work to back up any kind of unsureness you'd have as a GM. The tape doesn't lie.
No doubt. I don't think he'll go above Marvin Harrison Jr., but I have seen 1 or 2 mock drafts where he is above Marvin Harrison Jr., and I've seen some where Odunze is the top receiver taken. So I think out of these 3 guys, really, you can't miss. These are all number 1 receivers.
These 3 guys cannot miss.
That's right. Well, let's talk about Odunze. He's number 3 here. Rome Odunze, sitting at 6'3", 212 pounds from Washington. Of course, he was Michael Penix Jr.'s favorite receiver. He has athletic prowess that can't be overstated. And like I said before, there's a couple teams that really rank him as the top receiver this year. Notched a spot in the top 50 on the Feldman's Freak list in a high school. So, as Michael Penix Jr. might have generated most of the attention through UW's big run to the national title game, it was really Adunze who was the most consistent playmaker the entire season. He had 100 receiving yards at least in 10 different games in the Pac-12. And he had led the entire country with 1640 yards in 2023. The Las Vegas is not a gamble in the eyes of NFL scouts. He's a number one receiver from day one. Thoughts about Adunze?
He's my favorite receiver in the draft. I can totally see why Marvin Harrison might end up being better, but if I was picking, I'd pick Adunze. He's just a phenomenal wide receiver. He's 6'3". He's has an incredible body of work, including those yardage. I think he just makes your quarterback look amazing. So
do you see any downside to his? I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. had the best 40 time of these three guys. He had a 3.3 or 4.39.
No, again, I think it goes back to body of work's more important than how you did on one day. So no problems whatsoever. He wouldn't be getting 1640 yardage if he wasn't quick when he needed to be.
Do you know what I look at him? It's just about production. I mean, he's just productive. Every single game, he gets you 100 yards. He gets you, 8 catches, 100 yards.
Playmaker.
Yeah.
He wants the ball. He needs the ball. He's a playmaker.
He's just productive. Yeah.
To me, I have the best feeling about Adunze, but if I needed a receiver, I wouldn't hesitate on those three guys. Any one of them is perfect.
Completely agree. So the reason we called this episode the pass catchers episode is because we want to work in some of the tight ends, and the number 4 prospect among the pass catchers is Brock Bowers. He's 6'3", 243 from University of Georgia. You can see his receptions last season at 56 with 714 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. But it's amazing if you watch his tape. The stats really don't show all the things that he does. I mean, he is constantly in motion all the time behind the line of scrimmage. Sometimes they hand the ball off to him like he's a fullback. He lines up in the slot. He lines up on the outside. He is always a decoy on a lot of plays. He's just the most astounding tight end I've seen in a long time. And I think the one tight end this year that's a can't miss. Comes out of Napa, California. Originally in high school was a multi-position player. He lined up as quarterback, tight end, linebacker. He also was a defensive end one year. And he was a 4-star recruit the year that he came out. And he just, ever since he came into college, has been an eye-popping production machine for University of Georgia. What are your thoughts about Mr. Brock Bowers?
I think he's the best player in this draft.
Really?
I would take him. If I had a shot at him, I would take him over every other player, and I'll tell you why. Quarterback's really, really important, but you can get really good quarterbacks in the second round this draft. Wide receivers are amazing in this draft. It's some of the best I've ever seen. However, I heard, I think it was Rich Eisen talking about on ESPN. It was somebody on ESPN was talking about how has the value of wide receiver position gone down slightly, not along the lines of running back, but there are so many good wide receivers now that no one wide receiver has the value because value is determined by scarcity. So to me, there's no other Brock Bowers in this draft. And if you look at the last 20 years, every team that won the Super Bowl had somebody like Brock Bowers, and most teams don't have that in place. So I think him and Ott are the 2 most important picks in this draft. And then very close after that is the top, 5 quarterbacks and 3 wide receivers. Those are serious game-changing players. And then this draft is so deep. I can't stress enough that I'm looking at there's good players down to the 7th round who would probably go in the 4th round in most drafts. There's so much talent in this draft. If you don't have a lot of picks in this draft, you're really losing out.
And you talked about something that's really interesting there to me, which is go for scarcity, right? And you don't have a lot of Brock Bowers. You have one Brock Bowers in this
Right.
draft.
Right.
And so if you have a chance to draft him, you go ahead and take him. Like you said, not only have the last couple of winners of the Super Bowl had a pass receiving tight end that's all pro and Hall of Fame level, but a lot of times the losing team in the Super Bowl, the ones that actually get there, also have a Hall of Fame level pass catching tight end.
Yeah, it gets you there.
It's become a secret sauce. Not only do you have to have the great quarterback and the left tackle and the pass rusher, but you also need the pass receiving tight end. You really do. It's one of the core competencies of a team to get there. So why you would pass on Brock Bowers in this draft, I don't quite understand. This is one of the foundational building blocks. So you look at some of the credentials this guy's got. He got the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year. He was AP SEC Newcomer of the Year. He got Associated Press Awards, Coach Awards. He was finalist for the Rotary Lombardi Award, the Walter Camp Player of the Year. I mean, so everybody knows this is not a surprise that this guy's this good. And whoever gets him is going to be significantly better this year. No problem. Any other thoughts on Bowers?
His experience, his playmaking ability, his he's 6'4", 240. He's played on an incredible program that's gotten him ready for the pros. He's a must-have if you're really going to make a true run at the Super Bowl. So, you can be a pretender like the Dolphins and not have a tight end, but have really good skill positions, or you can be a contender and have a Kelsey, a Kittle, or a Bowers.
What do you think Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy would have been without their security blanket, i.e. their tight end, their outlet?
In fact, I'll go one step further before I answer your question. Andrews was just coming off an injury for the Ravens, and they were using him really carefully, but he wasn't Andrews at that moment. And so I think if they had him, I think they would have won.
Actually, he's become Lamar Jackson's favorite receiver. and
I know.
rightly so.
I know. So Lamar Jackson didn't feel like they could really use him on every play, so he's not that weapon that he normally is.
Yeah.
Not his fault, just injury. And so Brock Bowers is that guy. You need him to get over the top, and so that's enough said about that.
No doubt about it. Number 5, Mr. Brian Thomas Jr., the other side of the LSU. I mean, can you imagine these teams that have these guys that are, unbelievable all-pro, NFL caliber, number 1 receivers, and LSU has them on both sidelines? Incredible. So he came out of Walter High School in Louisiana, a consensus 4-star recruit, has athletic versatility, playing basketball in high school as well, and had several 1,000-point seasons as a basketball player. Came in and made an immediate impact in his first 12 games, recording 28 receptions, 359 yards, averaging 12.8 yards per reception. That really is a big stat for me, all these high yards per reception that this guy has in all of his seasons. Had a huge sophomore year follow-up. Junior year was his big breakout. He exploded for 68 catches, 1,177 in yardage, and he had 17.3 yards per catch with 17 touchdowns. So, I mean, these two stud receivers that Jaden Daniels had really helped his Heisman drive last year for the LSU Tigers. Had significant growth as a top receiver all of the years that he had at LSU, standing at 6'3", 209, has a 4.33 40, so he's actually the fastest of the top 3 receivers. He's just blazing speed. He's going to stretch the field for you. Any thoughts about Brian Thomas?
Yeah, so in the ESPN mock draft, he's the 24th pick. And if you look at his stats, he's 12th in receiving yards in the country, 1177, and that's being on the same team with Malik Neighbors. So that's ridiculous. He has 17 touchdowns. He's a touchdown machine. So I think what's amazing is he could be a number 2 on a team and be unguardable by the second best corner on that team.
There's no corner that could guard him, the second best corner.
Right.
It's not happening.
So, but he's probably going to be a number 2, to be honest. So, unfortunately, I probably wouldn't pick him. I probably wouldn't pick him in the first round, but you could get a real steal there. Maybe somebody's going to get a steal.
He could stretch and be a number 1 receiver on a bad team. I mean, if he gets chosen by one
He
of the
could
bad
definitely develop to that, yes.
He could.
But I mean, 12th in the country in yards on a team with Malik Neighbors.
Or he could be the Jalen Waddle to the Tyreek Hill, that were
Right.
both just outstanding.
Right. A little bit of a second fiddle, but like unguardable.
Right. Yeah, really great prospect. I think also a can't miss, by the way. He's just super productive.
Yeah. Pretty great.
Yeah, he'll be good from day
LSU
one.
receiver, that's enough said,
LSU University, you called it. Wide receiver university.
But yeah.
Next guy, number 6, is a very interesting prospect to me. I looked a lot at his film, and I had no idea how good this guy was till I was watching it. And Donnie Mitchell from Texas, 6'2", 205. Last year got 55 catches for 845 yards and 11 touchdowns. And this is for an offense that sometimes struggled. So you can imagine how good he could have been. He actually started his journey at Georgia and was actually a significant contributor at Georgia, and then eventually came to University of Texas thinking that he could be the central receiver for Texas, as he was. Throughout his college career, he demonstrated playmaking ability and solid stats, including his standout 2023 season, which I just mentioned his stats there. He got second team All Big 12. And as you can see, his draft highlights and spotlight has been on him really since he entered college. He's been on the radar for NFL teams. What are your thoughts about Donnie Mitchell?
Well, I don't have a lot of thoughts. He transferred twice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of that. I would probably stay away from it. He's slated in the ESPN pick as 23rd pick. Me personally, I wouldn't go for somebody who's transferred twice. I think they scream uncoachable. But that's just I'm sure he's very talented and maybe got some bad advice. And he's probably going to be a great pick.
I will tell you his highlights. When you guys watch the highlights that I'm going to put in the comments down below, his highlights pop off the screen.
He definitely has amazing highlights. I think that there is such a thing for him as too high of a pick, but also I think if you got him on your team, you could develop him. And as long as he went along with the coaching and kind of took the tough love, especially if you got a mentor that was on the team that he respected already, I think he'd be a really good pick.
I look at him kind of like you look at Thomas from LSU. I looked at him; he'd be just an amazing number 2 receiver for some team that already has their number 1.
Yeah,
he'd be that awesome on the other sideline, and I don't know who you'd cover, So that's what I see. I see a team taking him and making him their number 2 receiver, at least at first, until he develops. I think he'd be a solid pick. I think late first round, early second round is where I'd project him.
I'd take him in the second round for sure. If he's available, I'd take him in the second round.
For sure. Number 7, we got Tony Franklin from Oregon. This was Bo Nix's favorite receiver. Just so productive as a 4-star recruit coming out of California to Oregon. He had significant expectations coming in and basically did not let anybody down, was productive from the very first day he stepped on the field. This past season, he had 81 catches, 1,383 yards, 14 touchdowns, and had a 17.1 yards per catch average, which is really amazing. And had some of those really eye-popping plays that you'll see on the highlight reels that we put down below. Really established themselves as a force to be reckoned with in college football. Teams in the Pac-12 started having to actually game plan for Franklin. He was that dynamic a receiver. And Bo Nix would find him as much as possible in every game. What are your thoughts about Tony Franklin?
Well, I think he's pretty great. In the ESPN draft, they have him picked 52nd, which is at the end of the second round. I think that'd be an incredible addition for somebody because he was 6th in the country in receiving. He had 1,383 yards and 14 touchdowns. Very productive, incredibly productive. That's the kind of player right there that you could kind of miss out on some of the first receivers. Get him, but in the first round, if you address a big need, you're in really good shape. So I think he's a great pick,
I do too.
especially the value that he brings at second round pick. Yeah, he's
And
great.
you know how much I love Bo Nix and how much I love the Oregon offense and the fact that he was their primary
Yeah,
target. That just tells you all you need to know,
absolutely.
Franklin. Yeah.
Just the yardage and the touchdowns speak to the productivity, and you can't. I mean, you can't. That's the body of work right there.
Yeah, and Troy Franklin, one of the things that Bo Nix said about him was that he's always open. And he said, I'm not exaggerating. This guy, he runs such great routes. He is always open. So that's a good quality in the NFL, of course.
Yeah.
So his 40 time was a little slower than some of the others, 4.41, but
Sure.
still fast. Still fast. I think he's such a great route runner. He'll make up for that. Very few drops in his college career. He only had 3 drops in 2023, that's pretty astounding.
He's a perfect example of trust the body of work, not the single day at a combine.
Right. No, that's right.
At the combine, I'm looking for anything spectacular, but if I don't see it spectacular from a player, I don't count it against them.
Any concern at all about
DK Metcalf put on a show at the clinic at the combine, and that was clearly he was physically superior to everyone else, so you had to take him. But otherwise, if you don't have that kind of a performance, it's okay. Like, just look at the film, look at the stats, look at the interviews you have with him to see the character, talk to the teammates, and you're good. Pick him second round.
True. His height's good at 6'2". Do you have any concern at all about his weight being a little bit lower than some of the other guys? He's real kind of skinny and not very muscular at 176.
No, I think it's easy to put on weight in the NFL in a weight program. That's a simple weight for a receiver. That's not a problem.
He'll probably put on 20 pounds of muscle in his first 2 seasons.
At least.
Yeah.
And he's only a junior, so I mean his body's still forming, you know?
No, that's true.
He's not completely finished. So
I think
I'm not worried about that at all. I want to see playmaking. I want to see what his teammates thought about him. I'm looking for guys that the teammates made captains, you know?
They're projecting him late first, early second. I think in that early second round, some of those guys who are picking, including my Carolina Panthers, by the way, there's really going to be a lot of these great prospect receivers who could one day be number ones that are available. And so, again, we've never seen a wide receiver class this deep before. There's just so many great, talented players coming out.
This is such a special class for quarterbacks and wide receivers.
Yeah.
But you know, the counter to that is that there are so many receivers that you can get an amazing guy in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. So why use the pick there instead of going for scarcity?
But doesn't it get you excited for what the passing games are going to look like the next 2 seasons?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be just happy.
And here's another thing to think about.
If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm not enjoying this. This is going to be really tough.
Here's another thing to think about. There are so many receivers in this draft. You could get one in the 2nd, 4th, and 7th round that are all impact players. You just got completely better in the passing game.
That's right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you still did something that you needed in the 1st round. So
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be a really great prospect. Number 8, we got Ladd McConkey. He's the other guy on the Georgia sideline. Really an excellent receiver. You see, he had 30 catches, 478 as a number 2 receiver for Georgia. Didn't get as many balls as he might have because he had so many other weapons on that offense. Comes out of North Murray High School. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, joined Georgia, and definitely surpassed that. He was much better than expected throughout his college career. Sophomore, he played in 13 games with 51 catches. As a junior, 8 games and hauled in 29 catches. He actually had a couple of injury issues towards the end of the year, so missed a couple games, but has an elite QB rating when targeted. Essentially, never drops the ball. If you throw it his way, he's going to catch it, and he's going to make something productive out of it. So they have him ranked as the number 8 receiving prospect this year. What do you think about McConkey? Any thoughts about him?
Uh, in the mock draft, they got him at 29, so he's right around that end of the first, early second round.
Mm-hmm.
Body of work is important there, and the fact that he's on a program that is so pro ready. I don't know. I think he'd be an okay pick. I'm not sure I would use a second round or a late first round pick for him. I think there's other guys you could get that are more impactful. But
They're thinking he's gonna evolve into kind of a possession slot receiver kind of guy.
yeah,
Kind of like Christian McCaffrey's dad was for the Broncos.
yeah,
That kind of guy.
Ed
So it seems
McCaffrey.
exactly Ed McCaffrey, that type of receiver, and those are always very valuable. You got to have your slot guys to be able to get stuff over the middle. So going to be a very important addition to some team, I think. I think, again, he'll probably end up being a number 2 receiver somewhere. Not the number 1. He's not the blazing fast outside guy. He's more the slot receiver guy.
Yeah,
Somebody will get a really good player here, either in the late first, early second. I think it'll be early second where he goes. Some people actually had him going to the Carolina Panthers, as a matter of fact, early second round.
be a nice pick,
So,
just as long as they don't pick too early.
yeah, exactly. And he can, learn behind some of the guys they already have. So good prospect there, Mr. Ladd McConkey. Number 9 is Xavier Legette from South Carolina. Came from Mullins High School. He was also a 3-star at the time. Ended up getting an impressive 4-star grade from 247 Sports. Did very little on the field for the Gamecocks, really, his first couple of years there. He was very little used, and then all of a sudden, his senior year exploded out of the gates. Got 71 catches, 1255, and 7 touchdowns, and became South Carolina's favorite receiver last year. And really was impressive. I watched some of his highlights, and I was really impressed. He's made a lot of nice catches his senior year. Any concern there that he didn't produce till his senior year?
No concern. He's 33 pick in the ESPN mock draft. I think he's a nice, solid second round pick.
He seems a little bit like a project to me. Like he might develop one day into a number 1, but he'd be more like a number 2 or number 3 receiver for a couple of years. It'd be kind of a project.
I remember Tiki Barber said that you had to watch a player. There was no way to predict whether he had seen his best years in college or if he could go the next level and get higher. And he said some guys max out and peak out in college, and some guys are able to take it up a notch. That's why being a GM is not a perfect science. There's no way to predict who's going to get one step higher to get in the NFL and stay there. Some guys get to the NFL and they've already done everything they can, and that they don't quite make it, and they seem like a bust.
Yes.
So, and that was really interesting because I think that's right. And he might be a guy who can take it up one more notch once he gets there and wants to stay there. And, so he starts being even more of a playmaker. But he's 8th in the country in yards, pretty impressive. And, 7 touchdowns is not great, but it's okay. It's good. Clearly a weapon, but maybe his best days are ahead of him.
71 for 1255 and 17.7 yard perception. That's a really good average. And you have to remember, he's playing Georgia one week, and then the next week he's playing Kentucky, and then he's playing Alabama. He's playing in the best
against all NFL corners.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be a really.
I'd like to have him on my team. That's for sure.
He'll be a really productive receiver. I wonder though if it'll take him a year or 2 to develop. That's my gut feeling on it. Take him a little while to get into the groove, but I think the team will get a good receiver here. Number 10, we got Keon Coleman. This is a guy who's been on the radar for a long time for NFL scouts. 6'4", 215. He's just got all the physical skills and specimen. He was a 4-star rated guy by ESPN and 247 Sports. He also played basketball, and when he started in college, he went to Michigan State, played both football and basketball there, and played 6 games under Tom Izzo at Michigan State, which was pretty interesting. It shows what kind of athlete this guy is.
Yeah.
And then in terms of his football prowess at Michigan State, had some pretty nice numbers his freshman year there. His performance continued to ascend his sophomore season, where he made 58 catches, 798, with an average of 13.8. And that's in the Big Ten, where passing is not as prevalent as it is in the SEC. So he continued to develop and become better and better. And then eventually, after his sophomore season, he announced his transfer to Florida State for last season. And it was interesting that he did that, but he felt like he wanted to change and he wanted to really be the guy. He wanted to be the identified leader of the offense. So he went there and teamed up with Jordan Travis. And of course, he had a fantastic season last year with 50 catches, 658, and 11 touchdowns. And that's with a really loaded receiver room at Florida State. What are your thoughts about Keon Coleman?
Definitely a touchdown threat. A little concerned about lower yardage, but what I heard was if it weren't for the guy from Texas, the speed guy, Xavier Worthy, running that 40 time, we'd be talking about Keon Coleman. So he's definitely fast. He's a playmaker. He's got a good track record, and he came from good programs. So I think he's a really nice pick. I'm thinking second round.
What's ironic is he ended up joining Florida State thinking he was going to be the guy, and then he ended up joining really a more talented wide receiver room, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was the best move for him if he really wanted to be the guy, but I think he did have an eye-popping season last year, and he was on TV a lot. And of course, they ended up winning the ACC and going 13-0. So
yeah, they're kind of back.
So yeah, it might have made sense for him to make that transfer.
But he had a nice combine, so that kind of pops off the charts.
Really solid receiver. He's going to be a great prospect too. All of these guys, he'll probably go kind of early to mid second round type of guy, and he'll be a really productive receiver in the NFL for a long time. That's my feeling on him. So has a really good highlight reel. You'll see it if you watch the video down below. Again, all of these guys are really fun, exciting to watch. So number 11, we got Roman Wilson from Michigan. This is J.J. McCarthy's favorite target last year in their national title run. It actually came from Honolulu, Hawaii, where he played at St. Louis Crusaders High School and made a name for himself as a four-star recruit. Had a very exceptional performance. You can see here he had a 4.37 40-yard dash. He had the fastest 40-yard dash recorded by all the recruits this year. He's literally the fastest guy of all of them, even faster than Marvin Harrison Jr. Joined University of Michigan in 2019, demonstrated remarkable progress and increased his productivity every single year. 2021, he had 25 catches for 420. The year after that, continued to build on that. And then obviously his senior season being his statistical breakout year, where he had 45 catches, 735, and 12 touchdowns. And this is for a team that really didn't pass it that much. They were handing it off mainly. So the fact that he was able to get that kind of production for a team that didn't pass it very much is pretty astounding. I think he can have an even better performance at the pro level. What are your thoughts about Roman Wilson?
ESPN mock draft has him at 70.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's like early third round.
Mm-hmm.
I think, that's a good pick in the third round for sure.
I think if you can get somebody with a 4.37 40 in the top of the third round, that's an excellent pick. And somebody who's productive, good hands, runs good routes. He had that pivotal performance against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, where he made 4 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown, and that really put him on everyone's radar. I think before that, just a solid receiver would have been a late round pick, but that made his draft stock increase quite a bit, was that performance against Alabama. He is 5'11", which is a little bit of a concern. He's shorter than a lot of these guys, faster but shorter. So maybe a little bit of concern there for some of these guys, and that might be why he's dropping a little bit compared to some of the others. Any other thoughts here?
Not really. Just a really good, solid third-round pick. Very quality pick in the third round for what you're going to get for production.
I think Jim Harbaugh, he's always pumping up his guys, and he keeps talking about JJ McCarthy's the best quarterback in this draft and all that, but he was saying that whoever gets Roman Wilson, early third round is going to get a heck of a player. I think that's right. We'll have to see. All these guys are
What's
really
interesting about Harbaugh is he wills his guys to being as good as they can be. Like I remember when he was teaching Andrew Luck about the position and coaching him, he said by the end of it, he was so happy with the person that Luck had become. He said, "There's only two people on this planet that I wouldn't change anything about, and that's my wife and Andrew Luck." So
Right.
he sculpts these guys, he works with them, and then he believes in them, and then they become what he believes in. So he does a really good job of coaching his quarterbacks.
He does. This is why the guys love playing for him. He's just so loyal to them. Yeah.
With the quarterback wide receiver tandem, it's got to be there too. So, I'd be pretty comfortable taking a Michigan quarterback or wide receiver, honestly.
Yep. Agreed. Solid. They're really solid.
Solid. Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of the other guys who are available. We got Ricky Pearsall from Florida. He really had a fantastic year last year. Solid. Kind of projecting him in the fourth or fifth round, but I think you could get a really nice receiver there, maybe a number 2 receiver in the NFL. Ricky Pearsall. I was watching some of his highlights last week as well, and was very impressed. And I was surprised he wasn't up in the top 10. But there's just so many great receivers this year that he kind of is just outside that top 10.
I think there's so many receivers that are talented and put up big numbers, and he didn't put up tremendous numbers. He was 38th in yardage, which is 965. It's a good season, but it's not the kind of like first round production that you would expect. But he could definitely help a squad as a third wide receiver, maybe second. He could work into second. Your team can't have enough of those guys on it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. There's no doubt about it. All right, so then we have Jermaine Burton, who's right there in the middle, number 3 for Alabama. He was considered their number 2 receiver. Really solid guy, great route runner, excellent hands. He actually blew people away at the combine this year. They had him projected in the 6th or 7th round, and had such amazing combine performances that he's been coming up, and they're thinking he's going to go maybe 4th or 5th, somewhere around where Ricky Pearsall goes. So he's going to be one of those mid-level guys who could be a really kind of a steal of the draft kind of guy. What are your thoughts about Burton?
Well, Alabama, that's a pretty incredible program. Wide receivers at Alabama tend to do pretty well. Quarterbacks, a little more questionable, but wide receivers do. I don't know. I think they're coming from a university that gets them ready for the pros. So I think it would be good. And ESPN has them at 96. So that would be somewhere in the 4th round, I believe. Late 3rd, early 4th. You could get some pretty value there.
That shows you that these guys were skipping the combine. I'm not so sure it's really smart for these guys, because this is a guy who was projected in the 6th round, and then he comes up to the 4th because of his performance. So I don't know. To me, anytime you get in front of an NFL scout, you should do it if you're one of these guys, especially if you're not, Marvin Harrison Jr. So our third guy there is somebody who's very close to our heart. I went to University of Virginia, our school. That's Malik Washington. He was really the surprise of 2023 in the ACC. Nobody saw it coming. He had transferred into Virginia. Virginia, of course, had a very tough year with only 3 wins, and couldn't figure out who their quarterback was. Offense was sometimes okay, sometimes really a struggle, and yet Malik Washington had this unbelievable 100-catch season in the ACC, 11 touchdowns, and was just a dynamic threat. They would hand it to him out of the backfield. He would do jet sweeps. They'd give him little dump-off passes. He'd take it to the house. He was just everything you could ever ask for a receiver. And they're projecting him now as a late-round pick, but I think he could be one of the steals of the draft as well. What's your thoughts about Malik Washington?
What did you say they're projecting him?
6th or 7th round.
Yeah, I'm seeing ESPN 7th round. He is at the 211th pick. I think that's an absolute steal, maybe the steal of the draft. I know he's 5'8", and 194. The weight's not a problem. The height is, but he's a playmaker. It's on film. He just jumps off the tape. 14, 26, and 9 touchdowns. He was 4th in the country in receiving yards. I think people would be a fool if they let him get to the 7th round and haven't picked him yet. I would pick him in the 4th round, me personally.
Yeah, agreed.
I think he's such a playmaker. You can't ignore his body of work. He lit it up at 2 universities without having been on massive, good program quarterback production. So, imagine what he could do with a good quarterback and a good offensive line.
They were talking to some of the other ACC coaches about him that were playing Virginia last year, and they were saying that this guy, even though he's 5'8", they'd never seen someone who goes up and competes for the ball the way he does. Like, you just throw it up in his direction, and he usually comes down with it somehow. So he's one of those guys. I love those kind of guys, and I know coaches do too. That he's just super mega competitive, and you get the ball anywhere in his direction, he's going to go get it. It doesn't matter how.
I remember watching the combine, and they were singing his praises. They were just saying how he was the most impressive wide receiver at the combine, and he really shocked some of the scouts at how good he was, and he was making plays all over the place. And I just think he's one of those hidden gems that you don't need to blow a 1st-round pick on a guy to get somebody who's going to really be productive for you. You can get somebody like him, and so I think he's the steal of the draft in theory.
There have been a couple of Virginia receivers that have been kind of late-round guys that have come and really made big impacts in the NFL. I mean, we had one with the Packers this past season who nobody saw coming. So, I think he's going to be the steal of the draft at the end of the draft.
He actually does remind me of Dontavian Wicks.
He is a little bit like him. Wicks, of course, is much smaller, but yeah. Wicks is having
more productive even though.
Maybe. It's very possible. Wicks is becoming one of Jordan Love's favorite receivers, so it's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right, our last item here, we're going to take a look at a couple of the tight ends that are also available. We have Brock Bowers as number 1, and rightly so, but there are a couple other guys that are worth looking at. We have Sanders over here on the left side. He's the number 2 rated tight end in this draft. You can see he has a really high rating at 87.2. He's 6'4", 245.
Yeah.
And has a 4.69 40 time, which is actually really fast for a tight end. Played for the University of Texas, was one of the real productive players for that offense. And I know Ewers liked him as his security blanket. Really, really an excellent tight end. Somebody's going to get a really good, productive guy here. What's your thought about Sanders?
Well, I think if you're desperate for a tight end and you can't get Brock Bowers, he's a good pick. Like, he's a very good pick. I don't know if he's going to be able to produce like Bowers, but in the ESPN mock draft, he's 67th, which is, end of 2nd round, early 3rd round. I think he's a pretty good value there.
Me too.
So I'm taking a good tight end if I don't have one already. And there's only about 4 teams in the league that have maybe 5 teams that have a difference maker at tight end. So to me, I think it's the position that kind of gets overlooked.
And I think that he'll go probably 3rd round, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that a year or 2 from now you're going to start hearing his name, and he's going to start having a real impact. He's one of those guys that, he's got impact from a touchdown and catch perspective, but also blocking. Really excellent blocker, and he's just an all-around guy. So
yeah.
Watch him. I think he's going to get good. And then the next guy is the number 3 ranked tight end, Cade Stover, who's also very well projected to be drafted either 3rd or 4th round out of Ohio State. He was 6'4", 247. When they weren't throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr., they were often throwing to Cade Stover. He is one of these dynamic tight ends that is in motion most of the time, either going left or right in the backfield. Sometimes they would even hand it off to him like a fullback. He would do tight end screens, excellent route runner over the middle. He would make a lot of those really tough catches over the middle, even being hit by a safety. So, not quite as highly ranked as Sanders, but very close. you could get yourself a really solid guy out of Ohio State here with Cade Stover. What are your thoughts?
Ohio State tight ends are pretty great. They can block. Again, I think he's one of those guys. I'd get one of those top 3 if I needed a tight end.
I mean, the
think
tight
he's
end
gonna be a
position
good-
to me
good pro.
is getting, as passing becomes more important in the NFL, I think tight end position gets bigger and bigger. I think if I'm a GM, I'm taking a tight end at least every other draft. I'm just going to continue to take them because you need to develop these guys. So yeah, I think he's an excellent pick.
Yeah.
Probably fourth round. You'll see him get taken. Other guys over there on the right, I won't go through all of them, but one of the guys that really popped off the screen for me was Ben Sinnott from Kansas State. He had a really big impact year in 2023. He was his tape is really impressive to watch. Not only is he a great blocker, he's like a pancaker when he's blocking a linebacker or a safety. But he had incredible hands. Like anytime you throw it up anywhere close to Ben Sinnott, he was coming down with it. He was also kind of a touchdown machine for them. So I see him both as a blocking and a receiving tight end. So look for him. Other ones that were impressive were Jaheim Bell. They're from Florida State. He was their tight end this past year, had a really good season, became the security blanket for that team. And really some of these other guys are very good too. Theo Johnson for Penn State. You can pick up one of these mid to late round guys and develop them and really make sure you've got a good receiving tight end coming up. Any thoughts there?
There's a lot of good tight ends there that some of them are going to make it and some of them are not going to end up being what you want. I don't think their body of work is enough to guarantee a pro career, but I think several of them are going to have been good picks by somebody. And some are just going to be blocking tight ends that are out of the league in 2 years, 3 years.
Agreed. Or some of them might just remain blocking tight ends and not receiving tight ends.
It's possible.
And that's okay. You put them in heavy jumbo.
Every team needs a blocking tight end and a pass receiving tight end.
That's right.
It's easy to find a blocking tight end, but it's not easy to find a playmaker tight end.
That philosophy of, take a quarterback every 2 or 3 drafts, take a wide receiver probably every draft, take a tight end every other draft. You're always trying to restock. You're trying to build depth, trying to develop these guys. You don't necessarily need them to start right away, but you need them to develop. So
you want as much talent in each position room that you can get. You want your quarterback room to be chock full of options. Same with your receivers, tight ends, etc. And then you want depth at line.
That's right. Well, guys, that is the program we had today to talk about the top pass catchers in this upcoming draft. We are very close now to the draft, and we're really excited about it. It's coming up very soon. We have our big program coming up this Thursday, so look for that. We're going to be doing our mock draft analysis. We'll be looking at Malik Hooker and a couple of the other guys' mock drafts, and then Rob and I are going to do our own mock draft, which will be a lot of fun. And that'll be 1 week out from the draft itself, so we're getting really close, and we're excited about it. But thanks for joining us today for this discussion of the top pass catchers in the NFL draft coming up. Hope you enjoyed that, looking at the receivers, looking at the tight ends, and really this is a chock full of talent draft, and I can't wait to see how it goes. So, Robbie, enjoy the pool, and I'm going to be down there soon, signing off from Las Vegas. Thanks for joining us, and make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and look for a couple of other episodes that are coming out this week, and you guys have a great day.
See you.
See you.